Hello and welcome to today's episode of Hija de mi Padre podcast. I'm your host, Jules, and today we're going to talk about what's going on with the male loneliness epidemic. Now, I'm not going to really sugarcoat things. I'm going to say a lot as it is because, again, this is mostly geared. My target audience is for the men. And the men that actually want to do inner work, that they've felt stuck in life, that something's wrong, that they need some type of guidance, but they just really just left on their own devices because the word therapy has been thrown out there. But therapy looks a lot different for everybody. And what works for one may not work for everybody. So I understand why the concept of going to see this stranger and just spill your guts and be vulnerable to them seems very daunting. I mean, I don't want to say that it's scary to them, but you want to fill the term as you whatever fills your need. But I can understand why men are opposed to that concept. But it doesn't change the fact that men are human, and humans need to talk about certain things because we all experience trauma, we all experience hardships and issues throughout our lives, and that's part of human life. But with that, you need to take that and let it go, release it. How do you let it go? Men have been conditioned not to talk about these feelings because they were again and again being molded to think that talking about your feelings is weak. It's a girly thing. It's a feminine thing. You don't do that, and you don't show any part of weakness because otherwise you're compromising your image as a man. And with that, let me ask you, how is that working for you? How is that, serving you where you're feeling some type of nasty, negative, or just like heaviness? Because, like in psychological terms, I guess, your body is not processing that trauma. Your body is storing that. To you, you think that, oh, I'm just, I'm moving on, whatever. And let's say like your boss is being an asshole, has been an asshole for the last 3 months, and you're repressing it, just brushing it off, saying whatever, this is things we have to do, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not processing those moments, you're collecting that, that Tuesday that he made you stay later, that Wednesday that he called you in early, that like unnecessarily. I'm talking about like not regular, oh, life is hard. I'm talking about moments where you were either your time was not respected, where you were being pushed down or not seen, taken advantage, or whatever the issue is, where things kind of seemed unfair, where like your work was not being fairly balanced. So moments like that, and this is just like a scenario, okay? A lot of people were like put that, and if you're not releasing it, not doing anything with that, you're repressing all that anger, that resentment within your body, whether you are aware of it or not. So these skills, this is something that women, since we're the way that our brains are set up, our brains are socially driven, emotionally driven as well, to where we're better capable of tapping into that, into our bodies, into ourselves, and we know from like a young age how to process all that. Yes, talking to a friend, helps, but there's certain other ways that you can do it that helps you. And these skills, these social skills, of letting things go, not learning how to, like, not having it repressed. And, this is where people talk about bottling emotions up. That skill is not something that men have been taught how to delegate because of toxic masculinity, because of patriotism, the patriarchy beliefs, red pill content, all that is not helping men because it's idolizing a certain characteristic where, oh, you're a man and this is the definition. You have to be tough, you have to be mean, you got to be blah blah blah, and the only emotions that you're allowed to do and say and show is when you're angry. Because that's so hot, that's so cool. Women are gonna think you're hot when you're throwing a table across the room and blah 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 because you're showing your strength. And like, no, that's really not, because that's no different than seeing a child throw a tantrum. And that's not helping anybody because you're not communicating what's going on in your inner world in a healthy way. Because it wasn't that long ago that I saw like a compilation of how men these days are still punching TVs because of their sports. Like whatever, like the sport it is, whatever their team that they're rooting for missed on something or did something, whatever the reason is, there's still men out here fucking punching TVs, throwing a tantrum, throwing their like phones in, blah blah blah, thinking they're cool. And to some extent there is some level of forgiveness because this was projected as the only way that is okay, but it's not okay. So then where do we go from here? How do we retrain the male brain on how to focus and how to communicate their emotions when the thought of talking their feelings out feels really gooey and just like, ugh, it's awkward, right? But that's the thing. That's the ego. Everyone has an ego. And the ego is not inherently a good or bad thing. But the ego has been comfortable for so long. It's kept you alive for so long. So it's going to keep you doing the same things over and over. So when you're trying to learn a new skill, a new language, and like in this instance, a social skill of learning how to effectively communicate your emotions, you're going to feel that nasty little like weird, unsettling, uncomfortable feeling. And that's normal. That feeling you get, everybody gets that when we're doing something that's compromising the ego, because the ego doesn't know what's going to happen. That's where the saying of the better the devil that you know. So that's why you feel that way. Like it's normally around your chest area where you just like feel uncomfortable, or in your gut, or it shouldn't be in your gut, but your whole torso area. Normally that's where that emotion is, where somebody says, hey, let's talk about our feelings. And if you feel that sort of like, ugh, like pull back and just like, it's because it's the ego, like not sure. Like it's a skill you're not comfortable with because you've never been taught, and it's not something you're familiar with. And that's fine. That's perfectly normal. The difference is that you have to actually step up to be yourself, to honor yourself, to know that, hey, I'm fucking miserable in my life, or whatever, terminology you want to use. Whatever gets you to that point, that gets you to actually step up and be like, I need to change something because I'm not happy. I feel such and such emotions, and I don't know how to communicate. I'm frustrated. I'm blah, 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 whatever the term is. I'm frustrated at work. I'm just miserable. I'm just this or whatever. Whatever you need to feel to hit rock bottom, that needs to light a fire up your ass to want to change something. You need to change something in your life. Otherwise, your life's not going to change, right? So part of the reason that you need to learn how to effectively delegate these emotions whenever something happens. Because we're not children anymore. And yet, a lot of these people are adults, but having our inner child be the one driving the wheel. An example, punching a TV, hitting a wall, throwing their phone, and God forbid, hitting somebody. So that's where we're saying all this is negative behavior. It's normal to feel this way, but it's not correct to be exerting such actions. So then, okay, so how do we go about this? Well, that's a good question. This is where we start stepping into the idea of therapy. And again, I'm always using this example of sitting in a cold room with a chair and a stranger is not the ideal image of everybody. And that's perfectly fine. There's other ways that you can get into at least some type of steps into the positive behavior that you want, into the direction that you need to go. Yes, talking to a friend helps to an extent. So you don't want to go to your best friend. Let's say you have a best friend at work that you tell them about everything about, your wife, your kids, girlfriend, whoever, whatever. Like, say there's this one guy at work that he's your best buddy and whatnot. To an extent, you don't want to tell him everything. And as a man, I'm pretty sure you're already at that point. But let me break down why you shouldn't, because your friend is going to give you advice that's very biased. And like, in other words, he's going to tell you what you want to hear. And he's only going to go so far as his experience. So it's not really like an educated advice, but he's going to give you his opinion on what's worked in his life, whether it's correct or not. So I'm not telling you not to talk to your best friend, but keep it very light. It's important because you need to build those social relationships between your colleagues, and you have to build that confidence and whatnot. So here and there, it's fine. But when it comes to deeper topics, something that's festering you, like say there's something that, you're being triggered of something that like is reminding you of how abusive your dad was. Now, stuff like that, that's deeply rooted in your childhood. So with those type of scenarios, like things like that you have issues, but you're just like choosing not to address it, not to shine a light on it and work on that, that's only going to keep festering. That's only going to get worse, because it's literally your inner child driving the wheel, because there's still issues that need to be resolved from your childhood. But since you're neglecting your inner child, they're going to keep throwing some type of tantrum. And in a sense, I've seen studies of how when you repress certain emotions for so long, it's going to manifest in, if it's not outbursts of emotions, where I've seen it firsthand, where I had an old friend of mine that I've been telling him to go to therapy, but he's same thing. He's a sweet man, but he's had his own issues, his own traumas. And I've seen him on a bad day at work, where just, it's to no fault of anybody, it's just everybody gets a bad day. But that particular day, everything was stacked up to where his, the kettle burst or whatever, like analogy when you say, that was the last straw. That day he had a fucking meltdown, just swearing, and I've never seen this man mad ever. And it was scary, sure, but since I knew him on a deeper level, I understood that this was something that was like cooped up and just bottled up for years. And it just, Like, it needed to come out. And then that's unfortunate that people wait until times like this to actually get help. So again, like, yes, it's important to have those social connections with your friends. But when it comes to deeper topics that are a bit more serious, a bit more sensitive, you need to talk to someone that's a bit more traditionally trained on how to go about it afterwards. Because again, your best friend at work is only going to give you certain advice to their extent. But if you go to someone that at least has a bit more formal training, or at least has done some type of work to where they can better guide you to a different direction on how to go about it afterwards, where you're taking all this muck out of your chest, right? And you have it in your hands. And if you talk to someone that's not prepared to show you what to do with it afterwards, you're going to only reabsorb it. Or worse, you're going to feel shameful, guilty, and just like where you feel guilty for even showing that vulnerable part of you. And it's going to less likely like trust in other people to do that again. So it's very important to go to a professional therapist. Okay. In this state and age where this country is not prioritizing healthcare, I understand that it's not as easy as, or it's pretty expensive. I get that. Luckily, there's apps. I'm not, by no means, I'm not sponsored or anything, but if you do the research, and I'm sure you've had ads here and there. Luckily, there's ads where they're advertising these apps to actually talk to an actual person. Don't talk to an AI. Let's try. We're trying to erase AI altogether. So talk to someone, and I'm sure that there's like a price range that you could do. I want to say, don't quote me on this, I think the average price is like $80 an hour for a professional. Now, that ticket may, sting a little bit, but this is crucial. This is something essential that you really need. And I think this is where you have to talk to yourself to be like, oh, how serious are you taking, your journey? Do you really want to fix something in your life? Because everybody says that they're going to lose weight. They want to lose weight. They want to look good. They want to do this and that, look nice, strong and whatnot. But if you're really serious, you're going to be committed. You're going to actually get your ass up and go to the gym, right? So how committed are you to actually changing something in your life? Or are you still not hitting rock bottom to where you still want to stay stuck in your routine and just brushing it off? So then that's when you have to make that decision, where how serious are you about trying to find, solutions to these issues that are only going to get worse. And trust me, they're going to get worse. So with that estimate, let's just say it's an $80. Again, this is not, I'm just pulling it out, that number, because I think my last therapist gave me that quote, which to me, I think that's fair. That's more than fair because of what I get out of it in return, because I actually get a professional that knows what they're doing, that they went to school and all the things for that 1 hour. Okay, if I need to make adjustments to where, okay, I'm not going to go out for coffee, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to I need to splurge on myself. And this is like the best thing that money can buy. And this is coming from someone that's invested a lot of money in going to coaching. And I actually did a retreat, and I'll talk about it later in another episode, where I did a whole trip to Australia to go see the coach that I that best resonated with me, and I love her to death. But this is something, if it's an investment in yourself, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. So try to make that work. Make other sacrifices where you move things around. Like maybe you don't go out this every weekend, maybe other weekend you know, whatever moves you have to make, try to make that work for getting to that point where you're talking to a professional. Now, there's other alternatives. If you really can't make that work, it's like, okay, we're living in a time where there's a lot of coaches out there. Now, coaching may not be as reformed as going to an actual like licensed psychologist, therapist, whatnot, but they can help you set goals, set intentions for the future, and try to like navigate where to go from here to the future, right? Those the price range may be a little bit different. It may not be as expensive as a therapist. I don't know. You have to do your own research and try to find, but I'm sure there will be someone within your price range. Okay. If that's not an option for you, there's a lot of free personal, like, what's the definition for that? It's called like inner work, information, personal growth, personal investment, I believe, books. There's free material, content, YouTube, wherever you have to go. There's a lot of content out there. Just be very careful on not falling to red pill content where it sounds very, very toxic. Try to find content that at least talks about like neutral, like, themes about neuroscience, therapy, you know, like anything that focuses on inner work, the shadow work. Because it's just like building a house. If you there's a need that you need to build a house. So if they're going to a therapist is the equivalent of paying a construction company to build you a house. That's gonna be your top dollar. Okay, cool. You can't afford that? Okay. What's the next step? What's the option underneath it? Okay, well, you could hire, smaller companies, smaller like family-run companies, whatnot. May not be as expensive, but they may not have as much experience or the fundamentals to back up like what the big companies promise. But at least it'll be within a bit less of a budget. Okay, you can't do that? Okay, cool. So now we're at this point where you could build your own house. There's free material out there. There's really literally no excuse to say that you don't know how, because there's so much, like, whatever you want to learn is out there. You can learn it for free. So there's going to be books, materials, videos, courses, and we're going down like like your budget right here. So right now we're at the bottom where you're doing everything yourself. So you could build your own house. You can get books where it says, oh, you have to start with the foundation because whatever, everything relies on this, blah, blah, blah. Right? So that's my example. I guess my metaphor and how to see you're approaching to therapy, to talking to people. And at least in that the good thing is that in every stepping stone, there's ways, there's always steps on how to get more comfortable with it. It's at least leading you to a better direction, to a better venue. Like if traditional therapy doesn't work for you, there's always somebody else. There's literally something for everybody. So to say that I don't know how, that excuse now doesn't really fly well. because there's so much material at your disposal. And I'm speaking like this because I've tried all of those. I've done everything from audiobooks, books, courses, online courses, hiring coaches, doing the retreats, and actually to sitting in like that traditional therapist couch. So I've done all variations of it. Yeah, there's some that I like, there's some that I don't, but I keep trying because it's there's a flavor for everybody. So I hope that it kind of explains a little bit more. Just mainly to hit that note where don't rely on that best friend at work. Don't rely on your girlfriend. Don't rely on your mom. I'm like, that's great to have great relationships with those people and have like those such social structures where you guys are communicating and like showing a little vulnerability of each other just to establish bonds. But keep it to an extent, because in another perspective, it's not fair to give them so much to be responsible for. Because now they have to figure out how to properly like help you to the extent of their knowledge. And it's kind of like unfair to put all that burden, all that responsibility onto them. Again, this is something where like you have to be the like every case would be different depending on what the situation is, what the issues is. But again, it's keep it limited, because yes, it's important for you to talk to them about what's troubling you, what's helping you, but don't expect these people to help you so much to where everything, all the trauma that you're unpacking, that's going to get fully resolved there and then. They're there, like your mom, your girlfriend, wife, your friend. They're there to show you that they're there to show up for you as defense, as a building block, as someone to rely on, to prove to you that you can be vulnerable. There are times that it's okay for you to be weak, and they'll be there for you. Just don't put so much responsibility for them to fix everything for you, because that falls onto you. You need to take the other step on going to therapy or doing some type of therapeutic work. So only share surface level, maybe little shallow themes of like what's going on, so that way they can be aware whatever traumas, whatever issues that you're going through. And maybe they can even like support you in other ways, like where they drive you there, or they're there to hold you accountable. But don't have them as your only source of therapy. I guess that's the main point that I wanted to put out, that they can only do so much for you. Yes, they're going to love you, and then they're going to feel guilty if they can't, help you beyond that. So that's why it's important to just tell them like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, I might need to go, seek out, specialized help. And I would appreciate if if I had your support, or at least some type of feedback to where they can just, I guess the best way that I can kind of compare that is like when you're doing, like if for someone that's doing an AA meeting, you could talk to your mom about being an AA, or having some type of like drug addiction, right? But your mom can't really guide you fully to how to overcome it. Hopefully that makes more sense. She'll be there to drive you to your meetings, or trying to like get you to check up on you and whatnot, to be your support. And that's awesome. That's great. The more that you have on your team for support to keep you accountable, the better. And I guess I just wanted to really reiterate that Just don't expect them to be your only line of defense. Oh, okay, like if you're, substance abuse and you're only talking to your friend and your girlfriend and whatnot about your problems, but you're not doing anything beyond that to actually seeking professional help to actually do something about it, then it's not going to do anybody good, because the problem is still there. It's still sitting within inside you. All right. So that's going to be for today's episode. Hopefully that resonated and I didn't ramble too much. Again, all these things are not scripted. This is something I had an intention of one topic, and then I tend to riff and just go with the flow and see what comes in and just what feels natural, and just go on for there. So, all right. I hope you have a great day and see you next time.